Hello and welcome back to Deck Doctor. It has returned and I've renamed it to Oversky Deck Doctor since we're going to be covering cards and decks that feature in the most recent expansion. To start things off with episode 1 of Oversky Deck Doctor, we're going to take a look at Lou90's Monthly Cup Yellow Tempo list. Now after the Monthly Cup, I played this list extensively. It's very strong, especially against Blue-Green Ramp, but does struggle against Red Combat Control and can struggle against Yellow Rush. I think it's about 50-50 on that matchup. And I took this list all the way up to rank 7 on God rank, so I've had great success with this list. I really enjoy it, and if you enjoyed the old yellow event style decks, you're gonna love this list. So let's get into the cards and talk about what they do. These are the core creatures that you'll be playing in the early game. Shaitan Demon is a great offensive creature. It can be used as a Faeria collector as well, and can challenge a lot of the mid-game, mid-rangey creatures within the game. Underground bosses it clears, kills axe grinders, it kills elementals, and lives to tell the tale. And this is a great card to apply pressure to your opponent once you're set up near their orb. You can start dropping Shaitan Demons very cheaply, and they have a 5/4 that they have to answer. It does have a bit of a drawback. The production effect can really hurt you in certain matchups. Red Combat is one example. If you're behind and you're taking a lot of damage, Shaitan Demon can actually be really bad. And again, Yellow Rush as well. Rush can deal a lot of damage to you quickly, and then if you start drawing demons a little later, that damage from the production ability is going to add up. Windstorm Charger makes its return to the metagame. It was out of play for a little while because of Frog Tosser, but now Yellow Tempo applies so much pressure that the Frog Tossers don't really have that much influence. The Chargers tend to get a lot of work done before the Frog Tosser can really hurt you. So Charger makes its return. Great card, charge 2, lots of mobility, event synergy, and can trade up the curve. Mace Man is a new addition to Yellow Tempo, and it's in response to all the elemental cards that have been showing up because of the blue-green ramp deck. Mace Man is a neutral card, so it can be played very easily, isn't restricted to desert tiles, and it kills the wood elementals and the water elementals, and lives to tell the tale. And the thing with the blue-green ramp list is it doesn't have a lot of single target removal outside of Deepwood Stalker, which dies if it hits the Mace Man, and Frog Tosser, which also dies if it tries to challenge the Mace Man. So very good card to counter the blue-green ramp. So a bit of a meta choice. If you're not going up against a lot of blue-green ramp, you could use the Outland Ranger instead. More traditional card for a Yellow Tempo style deck, which has synergies with the Windstorm Charger. But if elementals are giving you problems, Mace Man is the perfect answer to them. Here we have some of the other creatures in the deck. We have Wind Soldier, removal, collects Faeria when it travels across the tiles. So just a great yellow card. We see this card time and time again in yellow decks. Manta Ride is a new addition. Fly in charge 2, last words, summon a 2/2 Manta with flying. So what's great about this card is it's quite durable because it develops another creature when it dies. And it has flying in charge 2 as well, so both cards, the Manta Rider and the Manta, are very mobile creatures that can collect Faeria for you, and your opponent has to invest additional resources in order to clear the full card. Windstorm Colossus is a one-of, not seen as much play as it used to. It's kind of a little bit of a finisher, I think. I think Lou added it because there are still a lot of events in this, but you don't want to be drawing them early. You'd rather see stuff like your Manta Riders, your Mace Men, and your Shaitan Demons. So a one-of is quite nice, I think. It just gives you a bit of pushing power, or just a way to dash in a way, blocking your opponents from maybe dealing some damage to you. So a lot of utility with its dash. And as a 7/7, a very powerful stat line. So you won't see this every game, but you might be pleasantly surprised when you find it's a 5 Faeria 7/7 you can play, and it could have a lot of influence. This wouldn't be a yellow deck without some removal. We have Soul Drain, which is great in combination with your Shaitan Demons, because it gives you a bit of sustain while they're on board, but 2 damage, gain 2 life, easy peasy. Choking Sands, a very good card in the meta right now because of all the elementals and all the combat creatures. So Choking Sands does very well against wood elementals, water elementals, underground boss You get value on that because you get 1 Faeria value because it costs 5. So there's a lot of good targets for Choking Sands at the moment, and that's why there's 2 of in this list instead of, say, Crystal Flowers, because Choking Sands allows you to kill the creature and then you don't have to deal with them later. There is a 1 of Last Nightmare. Now, I have bumped it up to a 2 of in some situations, but I think 1's just fine. This is just a way for you to deal with an unbearable creature like Cypher, for example, but also gives you a way to push damage if you just need to remove a creature. So there's a lot of utility with Last Nightmare. It is hard removal after all, but only a 1 of. You could go up to a 2 of if you want to drop a Kaleem's Training. You've seen a lot of green, for example, a lot of big creatures. But yeah, Last Nightmare, absolute staple when it comes to yellow control and yellow tempo decks. Our last selection of cards are the mobility cards. Flashwind, a 0 cost mobility tool, very powerful in combination with stuff like Kaleem's Training. You can give a creature flying, you can Flashwind it around the board, collect some Faeria, and push some damage. So Flashwind is a great way to apply pressure, it's a great way to move your creatures into a defensive position, or even move your opponent's creatures out of the way, which does cost 3 Faeria, so keep that in mind if you decide to do that. Kaleem's Training, again, is just another mobility trick, enables your creatures to fly. They got charge 2, so it lines up really nicely with Flashwind. And you can use this card in combination with your Mace Men, your Shaitan Demons, or your Windstorm Chargers if you want to push damage or get into reach of a creature on the other side of the board. Or, alternatively, you can use this with Wind Soldier and make it a 4 attack creature, so you can clear creatures with 4 life, and it gains flying, so it doesn't need any land. So very good combo there with the Wind Soldier. Last but not least is Orodrim Fanatic. It's basically a creature version of the first part of Flashwind. Again, a free to out. It's really nice as well, has jump, so it's very mobile itself, which means it can double collect very easily. So it gives you a bit more mobility. You don't have to rely solely on Flashwind, and you get a potential double collector as well. Alright, we've covered all the cards. Let's talk about the Mulligan. Your priority for the Mulligan is an early creature. The Windstorm Charger is perfect. It can move around the board very quickly, and it's very threatening with an event. Mace Man is also perfect because you can play it off Explore, so you can go Desert Explore, Mace Man, and the next turn it's collecting Faeria. And Orodrim Fanatic's not bad as well. It's not a priority, but if you do have a Fanatic in hand, it might be worth just keeping it, because if you Mulligan everything, you don't find a creature, you're going to be a bit sad. So Fanatic's really good as an early game harvester, but also can be used to move your other creatures around the board and get some favorable clears. So Fanatic, very good for that. It gives you the mobility you want in the early game, but also gives you the body, so you can collect some Faeria and challenge other creatures. Other cards I definitely consider as well as Flashwind, especially with a Charger as well. Means you can deal 4 damage with a Flashwind alone. This can allow you to clear stuff like Wood Elemental and Water Elemental. Soul Drain, again, just a nice card to combo with other creatures. Fanatics, that's 5 damage. That can kill, say, an Underground boss. With a Mace Man, it can kill a Ground Shaker. So there's a lot of things you can do with Soul Drain. Gives you a lot of reach with your creatures. Last but not least, Choking Sand might be worth considering, especially if you know your opponent's playing a blue-green ramp deck or a red control deck. So if there's a lot of that in your meta, wherever you are on ladder, Choking Sands could be a very valuable resource, because you can just clear up one of the collectors in the early game. So now you've seen the cards in the deck, why would you want to play it? Let's look at the strengths and weaknesses. So Yellow Tempo has incredible reach on board, and what I mean by this is it has a lot of mobilities and a lot of ways to influence the board where your opponent can't reach you. So you can place your creatures out of range of your opponent and then use a mobility trick to attack your opponent where they couldn't reach you before. So that's very powerful, and using stuff like Flashwind, Orodrim Fanatic, Kaleem's Training allows you to zip around the board very easily and take care of your opponent's creatures. Great board control with removal. Yellow is one of the best removal colors in the game. You have access to hard removal, Choking Sands, and Last Nightmare, but you also have access to Soul Drain, which synergizes with stuff like the Windstorm Charger and the Windstorm Colossus. So great removal, and you can also use this removal in combination with your creatures and the mobility. Counters blue-green ramp and matches up against red combat. Now, red combat can be a pretty bad matchup in some in some circumstances, but you do have answers to it. You have the choking sands for their combat creatures. You have a lot of burst damage if you get the right combination of mobility with your creatures, and you can sometimes outrace them. As for blue-green ramp, I think blue-green ramp gets murdered by this list. They basically can't collect enough Faeria and land ramp fast enough to have any real relevance on board. You're able to 2-for-1 a lot of the time to stuff like Mace Man and the Charger and the Shaitan Demon, and you apply so much pressure, so much resources are built into reacting to you that they don't usually have the Faeria to, say, drop the Tree of Everlife and get it down comfortably. So this is a great choice when it comes to fighting blue-green ramp. So some of the bad things about yellow tempo and prone to bad draws. Now this might sound like every deck is prone to bad draws, that's true, but the problem with yellow events in the past is you can just draw a hand of removal in events and then you don't get a collector. I feel that this version of yellow tempo is less event orientated like the old versions, so it doesn't get as bad draws as old yellow events does, but you still sometimes pick up like a Windsold or a Flash Wind and another Flash Wind, and you're just like, well, I can't do anything in the early game now. So you have to keep in mind that you can get some pretty rough draws. A red removal matches up against yellow creatures, so red basically has removal for days. They match up so perfectly against your creatures. Bombslinger kills pretty much everything apart from the Windstorm Colossus. Cypher's Wrath kills your Orodrim Fanatics. And then you have Flame Bursts as well in combination with stuff like Ground Shakers, can kill your other 4 life creatures. So red just has a lot of removal that matches up very nicely to yellow tempo. And this is where the matchup can be quite bad when it comes to fighting red combat, because if they get the right removal at the right time, it can be very hard for yellow tempo to get back into the match. So if you're experiencing a lot of blue-green ramp on the ladder or very slow decks, yellow tempo punishes slow decks really well because of its incredible reach and board control. So this could be a very good option if that's what you're facing on ladder. If you're facing against a lot of red, maybe a lot of yellow rush as well, I maybe would consider a different deck, but I feel that yellow tempo can win any matchup because it has such a snowball-y style of play sometimes. But maybe you'll want to pick something a bit more, sturdy, I guess is the word I'm looking for, against, say, red combat and yellow rush. Something maybe like a green, or maybe the blue-green ramp, because it has access to a lot of taunts. So this deck is really good. But I think it can be a little bit skill intensive sometimes if you're not very familiar with mobility tricks and stuff like that and using your flash winds to their most. You might struggle a little bit, but it's very rewarding once you learn this deck. So if you are interested in yellow and you're interested in a very strong tempo deck, I definitely recommend this list. When it comes to land development, it's very simple. You start off with a desert in front of your orb, and then you build towards a well. And then you start to apply pressure to your opponent's well by going straight up the side. So one common opening that I do is desert diagonally 3 times to your well, and then you can use double neutrals to use mobility tricks to influence the board, and eventually you set up an aggressive desert where you can start applying pressure with Shaitan Demons, and that should be all the land you really need. Sometimes you have to build land reactively, but in most cases you don't want more than 3 to 4 deserts. You want 2 to 3 deserts near your orb going towards a well, and then you want 1 or 2 deserts potentially when you get to your opponent's well where you can apply pressure. But it's pretty simple. You just want to control 2 wells, your own well and one of your opponent's wells, and you want to fight them off that well because you don't want them to collect Faeria. Starve your opponent of Faeria, and then eventually use your cheap and powerful creatures like Shaitan Demon to finish off your opponent. So very simple game plan, and you can see more of how to play yellow tempo in the next episode of Deck Pilot. That wraps up the first episode of Oversky Deck Doctor. There were so many decks I wanted to do a Deck Doctor on, but I ended up playing Yellow Tempo on stream. I'm doing pretty well with it on ladder, so I figured I'd talk about that more since I'd played it so much. But I really wanted to show you guys my mono green list, which I talked about in the Island 5 review. I've been playing a lot on ladder recently, and I've climbed up to the top 10 ranks with that list too. So maybe I can cover that next week, because that list is a lot of fun. But Yellow Tempo, such a solid deck, and I think it's very rewarding as well, because if you know how to apply pressure correctly, you can absolutely dominate your opponents. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, drop a subscribe to keep up to date on when our content goes live. Don't forget to check out Deck Pilot. There'll be me playing some high-ranked ladder games with this list, and I'll be going through all my plays and why I'm doing stuff, and hopefully that will give you some more insight on how to play Yellow Tempo. Thank you very much for watching. So until next time, take care and enjoy Yellow Tempo.
Discover the Adventure Pouch Oversky, featuring a first-of-its-kind co-op campaign. Team up with either friends or powerful Faeria characters and discover a ton of new content, including more than 30 new cards. Join now to experience the Emperor's daily challenges and reap exclusive rewards. Explore the Oversky and reap the rewards today.